forget what you've heard about Vietnam. Let's find out what it's really like.
Imagine an economy that, in the span of a few decades, catapulted from one of the poorest in Asia to a growth rate of 8.02% in 2022, outpacing even the giants like India and China. This isn't a hypothetical scenario. It's the reality of Vietnam. With a GDP per capita that increased nearly tenfold from under $300 in the 1980s to $2,800 in 2020.
Yo, it's the Jimmy Superfly Snuka of the ESL game, aka your biological father.
8 feet high! Oh my God!
I'm here with one of my very good friends, longtime client, and also really, really close confidant, who is now working in Provincial Vietnam for several months now. We lined him up with employment out there. He wanted something quiet in a nice kind of like hill country town. And we're going to hear a little bit about what that's been like, because generally speaking, guys, provinces can be very hit or miss. You could end up in a nice little hill station like my friend here, or you could end up in some little shithole on the side of some fucking highway, like 30 kilometers outside of Saigon, you know, with fucking ridiculously bad air quality and nothing to do, no foreign services, and a very narrow-minded mentality. Or you could end up in a province, you know, 2-3 hours from Hanoi, where, you know, everybody in the town knows each other and the center may try not paying you. There's all kinds of crazy shit, you know, and they may know all the local authorities because everybody knows everybody, and they may even be working with the local authorities. And, you know, we've had situations over the years where I had a client, I had to help him get out of trouble. He got a job up in a province like an hour or so north of Hanoi, and these motherfuckers didn't pay him, and they tried holding on to his passport. And he went to the police, and it turns out the training center was working with the police, so they didn't give him back his passport. So he had to go to the neighboring district and talk to their police and then pay them the facilitation money. And then they came and they got his passport back from the original one. All this bullshit just by working in a province for the wrong fucking people. A lot of times the Africans, they'll be really desperate, or like people from Pakistan, places like that. They're super desperate to get a job, and they'll end up agreeing to work in some shithole province, like, you know, 3 hours outside of Hanoi, you know, in some industrial city. And, you know, they'll get their passports taken. They'll end up having employers that'll not pay them, tell them their kids can go to school, not let their kids go to school. There's all kinds of devious shit going on. So my homeboy here, he works with us, so he doesn't have to worry about that kind of thing. We set him up with a reliable, stable employer who pays pretty well. But I imagine that there's still going to be some nuances, because you're dealing with a province, and the company itself is going to be, you know, it's like working for any larger training center. They're going to have their expectations. This brand that we hooked him up with a job with, they're a large brand in Vietnam. We're not going to say their name, but we'll just kind of let you know it's one of the larger brands that we got him in with, because he's an actual teacher. He's got a master's degree. He was a teacher in the US. Anyway, I want to get the conversation started with, what's it been like coming from the places you've taught in the past to where you are today, teaching in a province in Vietnam? What's different?
This is the smallest town I've worked for, city I've lived in, I should say, in Asia. I was in Suzhou, China for a lot of years, and then I was in Phnom Penh, and now I'm here in Buon Ma Thuot. And it's small. There's not a lot to do, but to be honest, I was kind of just looking to save some money. So it's very clean. It's the pollution is low. The traffic isn't bad. The weather's been very agreeable. Being up in the highlands, it's not as hot as, say, Ho Chi Minh or Phnom Penh. It's an agreeable little place to live. Not a lot of action up here, but again, it was the kind of place I wanted to be. I didn't really want to live in Ho Chi Minh with all of those things, you know, the pollution in the water and the air and the traffic and the flooding and the madness. So it's been pretty agreeable. I think as far as what I've heard about provincial towns, it's decent, you know?
Yeah, I think you hit the lotto, because I remember when we were first talking to them about this job for you, they gave you this list, and you and I were looking over the list, and it was pretty grim. aside from like 1 or 2 assignments that might have been like kind of acceptable. And luckily, this really nice little hill station called Bun Mao Tut was available. It's not really much going on out there, but like you said, the pollution isn't bad. It's hill country, so the climate is cooler. It's just a generally pleasant part of Vietnam to be in. It's the south of Vietnam, so the people are nicer. Has it been weird, like the working environment in a province?
The working environments, well, as far as how the town affects it, we seem to have a lot of turnover. There were 2 foreigners there. I mean, I've been there just over 4 months now. There were 2 foreigners there when I got there. One guy's already gone. The other guy's leaving. Half of our TAs are going to be gone soon. Our office girl is gone. So I don't know. I don't know if that's normal. I don't think it is for most other places. This one guy I work with, he was saying he's a traveling teacher actually for this company, and he's worked for a number of centers around Vietnam. He said it's not normal to have this kind of turnover. But no, I haven't. I can't say. I can't say for sure that the where I am affects the quality of the work. They do need people for the provinces, so they will. You're less expendable, but although sometimes I don't feel like it. I guess we'll get into that a little bit later when we talk about the job itself.
So your situation is a bit, unique because you actually do have a master's degree and you're working in a larger branded training center. The risks in provinces are more so working for these smaller fly-by-night operations in these places rather than a larger institution. Because some of the larger institutions, it's like anything. They're going to have their base expectations. They're going to probably have a lot more bureaucracy, a lot more headache, but you can kind of gauge what you can expect from it. Whereas if you tried to go to a small province in Vietnam yourself and just try to work for some happy English training center, like it could be a completely different experience. So I do want to point that out that the homie here has a degree. He's actually a real teacher. He taught in the US. And this is not like a fly-by-night backpacker kind of guy just showing up with no documents hoping to get a job. So he's got a cruisier situation than a lot of other teachers that may lack some of the documents that he has. So it's important to bear that in mind. And if you are a credentialed teacher, we can help you find employment, whether it be in a large city or a province, from people who will do the right thing by you. Tell me, has it been weird being in the town? Do you stick out a lot to the locals?
Oh yeah, there's not a lot of white people here. You're definitely like an object of interest. It hasn't been in a bad way. Like I don't have the police paying any. Well, I don't see many police around, to be honest. But in fact, I almost never see any police. But it's not like they're following me around. People are more curious about you than anything. They're pretty friendly here. I mean, you walk down the street, a lot of people will say hello. Once in a while, you get like the heart, the kind of stare from the old people or something. But that doesn't bother me because I just stare right back at them, and I always win that game. I stare until I'll follow them up the street, staring at them until they break eye contact. Free lesson in social behavior. But other than that, no, it's pretty comfortable. I prefer to be a little more anonymous, but it's not that bad. I mean, you can for the most part, you can sit in a restaurant and eat, and like people aren't just going to come up and start bothering you. They do have a level of social prudence that way, but nothing uncomfortable.
So the most important thing that a teacher needs to know about a place in Southeast Asia is what about the drinking and prostitution? Is it available?
Well, not really. This town that I live in has a lot of coffee shops. Bun Ma Thuot's like the coffee capital of Vietnam. Lots. It's a very heavy coffee culture. This is a very family-oriented town. There's not a lot of not a lot of bars, not a ton of partying. There are bars here and there, but not a lot. There is a brothel outside of town. I understand. I don't think. I mean, maybe there's drugs around. I haven't really looked. I've heard about from students about some drug-related crimes. Like we had a crime and punishment class, and they told me a few things. But no, there's not a lot of that. I mean, to be honest, like even if I wanted to troll for drugs, it wouldn't be a comfortable place to do it because you're not very anonymous here. Like wherever you do, like people are going to kind of know about. It's that small town kind of thing. Now it doesn't matter to me right now because I'm just playing PlayStation and banking money. That's all I'm really here to do. So I actually didn't want the temptations anyway. So, but yeah, if you're looking to party, this isn't a town to party really.
Yeah, I would say most of the provinces, that's going to be the case, guys. Like, I know in a lot of people's fantasies, they see themselves, partying it up in Da Nang and teaching, the kids during the day. But most of the time, that's not reality. Those places are coveted. There's not that much work. A lot of times, teachers are teaching at kind of a subsistence level to survive in beach towns. They're being undercut by Russians who are also white and very often look like models but don't speak very much English. But the Vietnamese generally don't give a shit. They care more that they're attractive. So, it's not as easy to just rock up to like a beach town and, oh, I'm going to do it. Right. That's what a lot of people have in their minds. Generally speaking, the jobs are going to be in like large cities or in provinces. And the province that my partner here ended up in is one of the nicer places where you can end up. I definitely stress that there are some provinces where you probably will really not have a good time because there's not much going on. Maybe they're dirty, polluted, industrial, small. Everybody knows everybody. Potentially your center is crooked or connected to the local authorities. They can make a lot of headache for you. So, I generally tell people if it's their first time coming to the country and they're not working with me, for example, where we can like make sure they get the right contacts, then I would say start in a larger city because you're going to have a lot more options and you can kind of test the waters and meet different employers and kind of gauge what's going on. Where you're at right now, there's not too many shows in town, I imagine. How many training centers do you think there are in your town?
This is the only big one that I know of. I guess we're opening another branch sometime soon. I've seen a couple. There's one that's a couple foreign guys privately owned. There's a place across the street from where I eat called Star English. I've never seen any foreigners come out of there. I don't know if the Vietnamese are teaching them English or not, but there's not a whole lot that I've seen. But it's a growing town. I mean, it's growing quite a bit from what the locals say. And again, where I work, they are opening a new center. So, but there's not much here at the moment.
So yeah, like maybe there's one or two small like private centers, and then there's a couple bigger. There's one big corporate center, and that's it. So
Right.
really, guys, it's that kind of thing. Like oftentimes, if you get an assignment in a small province, there may only be one, maybe two shows in the whole town. We got one young fella a job up in Toi Hoa, which is like a nice beach town along the coast. He's just very lucky. He didn't even have a degree. He's just like a young British kid and he looks like what they want him to look like. So they're sorting him out up there. And he was telling me that like if you were to leave the job, the only other job in town is like one other training center. So that's what you guys got to understand about the provinces is that these places can be very small, very insular. If the relationship with the employer doesn't work out, you may need to go to a different province or back to a large city in order to look for a different employer. What's been the process like getting the work permit? Has there been a lot of delays? Is it taking a long time?
I have my work permit now.
Good.
Yeah, it was a process though, definitely. Now, the cool thing is that the school, more like a company than a school, but whatever.
Yeah.
They're pretty good about like getting on top of that, getting the paperwork done, helping you get the paperwork done. I had a whole chart of things I needed to do. The only delay I really ran into was with the local government. I had to get a background check, and so we had to go through the local government for that, a Vietnamese background check, and they were super anal about like how to fill in this form. I had to give a residential history going back 20 years, bro. But needless to say, I don't remember all those addresses, but then somehow I did remember them just right off the top of my head. And I just filled that shit in. They don't even check it anyway. They're just, but we had to bring it back like a few times, and my boss helped me with that. So that delayed things. And then it got to a point where my visa was going to expire. I had to extend it by a month. That cost me like $55. But fortunately, I was able to extend the visa in-house. I didn't have to leave the country. This girl down in Saigon took care of it, but it was close. It was a close call. Like, I'm like thinking, man, I got about a day left here. Is this happening or what? Because, it causes stress that way. But anyway, they got the background check done and paperwork went through, and it was a process. It could have been worse. I talked to a guy from England. If you're British, you have to go back to the UK and get a background check and get paperwork and come back. Yeah, it cost him a ton of money. I was like, are you kidding me? I'd have just bolted. I mean, it was enough for me as it was, but could be worse. I don't know what the rules are for other countries. I'm an American, of course, but you definitely, on that topic, it's good to work for a school that is on top of that stuff, because this bureaucracy is screwed 6 ways from Tuesday, man. It's a mess. I've never had to deal with anything like that before.
And it's much worse in a province because you're dealing with an immigration authority that isn't like Saigon or like Hanoi, like these large immigration monoliths that deal with like thousands and thousands of foreigners. You're in a place that like maybe the authorities have like 6 foreigners in town that they're dealing with,
Yeah.
that they're managing. So,
Yeah.
you know, that's one thing I would say is that depending on who you work for, another thing that's a very important factor is, you know, whether or not they're going to assist with the bureaucracy and what the bureaucracy is going to look like working with them. Different companies may actually have different expectations. And I know that sounds weird to people, but because there's all different kinds of ways that things can get done in Vietnam. So, you know, sometimes it can be done in a very formal way, and sometimes things can be done in kind of informal ways. And the place where the homie is working is a very formal place. It's a very document intensive employer. So because of that, he does also have some protections because they're running a legitimate business and they want to have a good reputation. But again, like I warned earlier in the video, if you're working for a small operation, you know, in the provinces, you have to be much, much more cautious.
I've stuff myself. I mean, there's so many mistakes you could possibly make. You know, if you don't have somebody guiding you and helping you with the process, helping you deal with the local government, man. I mean, I did, and I still had some close calls. You know.
So yeah, we got him into this job. We set him up. He was coming from Phnom Penh, and you know, it's not a huge city, but it's a lively, busy city. There's a lot going on in Phnom Penh, and now you're in a very different environment in the Central Highlands of Vietnam. How are you feeling about the change?
Well, I liked Phnom Penh more, to be quite honest. I like the lifestyle there. Problem is the teaching work is kind of rough.
Right.
Yeah, it's rough in pay, but you know, they also, like, the jobs I had pretty much left you alone. The one I have now, they're really on my ass about just, they're very anal. I mean, you get observed constantly, student surveys constantly. Well, we'll talk about that more later. I think ultimately I would actually like to move back to Phnom Penh in the future, but I want to bank some cash here first. When I decided to come here, you know, I've been thinking about giving Vietnam a try for quite a while. I just needed to, you know, the thing is, this training center, from everything, I mean, you and I have talked extensively about Vietnam. And when I put it all together, I said, okay, I'm going to give this a shot with this training center, right? Because for everything I know, seems like it has the best chance of being the kind of place I want to work for. And they're pretty nitpicky. So I'm going to bank some checks for a while, but I kind of want to get it back to Phnom Penh. I think I'm going to reform my strategy there. I can get work, but I'm a little more knowledgeable now about how to do it. I have a ton of contacts compared to before. And even if I say get a job with an international school for the upcoming school year, with this job here, the cost of living here is so low, I could easily have $8,000-9,000 in the bank by the time I get back to Phnom Penh in September. So it's just, you know, obviously with any move, you're kind of hoping it's going to work for the long term. I'm not looking to be like a roaming nomad. But it wasn't a bad move for the money grab at all. You know, I was hoping it would work long term, but if it doesn't, it's a nice chunk of change in the bank. You know?
And you're safe. You're in with a company that's reliable. They're not going to fuck you and like run you out of the country. You're going to get paid.
Right.
So it's a comfortable situation where you can rock out for a bit, and then, you know, it seems like your heart is more in Phnom Penh, and then, you know, makes sense to come back here. I love Phnom Penh. I mean, listen, I love Vietnam. I lived in Vietnam for a lot of years. And I still come there for parts of the year. Even when I go back towards Europe, I'm still going to come back to Phnom Penh. I'm still going to come back to Saigon. But, you know, these places are always going to be part of my life. But at the same time, I just have kind of gotten a little bit tired of some of the bureaucracy and the issues that you deal with in Vietnam, and just the time that you have to wait for things to get done. So, you know, simple things sometimes.
The ease of bureaucracy and the visa freedom are a huge reason I'd like to go back to Phnom Penh. You know, you're right about the job I have now. Yes, they are organized. They're not shady. They're not gonna, you know, not pay you. They're not gonna screw you. But at the same time, your visa is tied to your job, you know. in Phnom Penh, if I get a job and they're treating me like crap, I can just F them off and go get another one. I got the visa right there. So it's not like that big of a deal. With this, you're kind of stuck with it, and which is okay. But that visa freedom can't be beat. I remember when you and I went to Phnom Penh, we got there a couple of years ago. What did we pay? A few $100 for I think I paid it like $300 for a full year business visa, all in all, or something like that. And nobody ever bothered me. It was just like, boom, there it is. You're good to go. You didn't have to do anything for it. It's great.
Yeah, for all the countries in this part of the world, Cambodia is the easiest. It's just the work. Like, I think where you're at in Vietnam, like with your cost of living and with the higher salary, like just the ability to refill your bank account there is going to be like substantial. But I will say, guys, it is attractive. And even if you don't necessarily have all your documents, you're not going to get to work for a company like my buddy here, but I do have some contacts that can occasionally get employment in provinces if that's what you're specifically looking for. And some of the provinces are not that terrible. You might have a satellite city of Ho Chi Minh that would still be, pretty large city by Vietnamese standards, but just nothing really particularly interesting for foreigners. Things like that. There's employment that pops up in those places. But very often, guys, in the provinces, they want you to work 6 days a week. And a lot of times it's kind of like there's nothing else to do anyway. You're just like, you're out there and you're like, your life is sort of your job, But because he's with one of the larger companies, I believe you're only doing 5, right?
Well, I'm 6 days a week. The way it works is, it's kind of weird. It's like I'm technically on salary, right? But it's really more like hourly with 20 guaranteed hours. And then if they want me to work more than that, I get paid basically that what's the word I'm looking for? That I get paid that same rate for the extra hours I work. Yeah. It's the phrase I'm looking for. I'm like retarded right now. I'll think of it later. Anyway, that's really what it's like. I just had a holiday for tech. That was unpaid. So I didn't like that. I thought it was going to be paid, but yeah, it's more like hourly with 20 guaranteed hours. And then you get paid more per hour later, which isn't bad because from what you told me, in some of the other cities, like you got to go place to place to maybe 3 different centers to get your hours in, right? With these guys, I'm going to the same center. I have guaranteed hours. And if they don't meet my hours and it's not my fault, I still get paid that base rate though. So that's kind of cool.
Oh, well, I mean, listen, if you're getting paid for the time you're working, that's the main thing. Because a lot of the other jobs that I see popping up more often in places like Bien Hoa, Dong Nai, they'll be like a base salary and they'll still expect 6 days a week. Maybe it'll be like a total of 25 hours, but there'll be like a lot of unpaid time meeting parents and doing this type of stuff. Whereas because you have all your documents, you can go pretty much anywhere and you'll have a little bit more options, especially since you were an actual teacher. So they're kind of in a way, they're kind of lucky to have you out there because, not so many people want to live in the provinces. A lot of people don't mind working at 2 or 3 different training centers just so they can be in like Ho Chi Minh City or in Hanoi or a place that has a lot of Western services.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. Like I said, 6 days a week, but it's like, it's, it's a training center, right? So your weekdays, like I usually have Monday off today. I'll have a 2-hour class tomorrow night. And then, I don't go in on Wednesday until 5 o'clock. So this is kind of like my weekend. I work 2 hours in 2.5 days. And then I'll work Wednesday night for a few hours, Thursday a few hours, Friday a few hours. And then Saturday, Sunday are longer, but might be 5 hours each day. It's not too bad.
How much you making a month and how many hours?
Well, let's put it this way. With the cost of living here, and I've had about 4 paychecks now. Even on a minimal paycheck, where let's say I only get the minimum of 20 hours a week all month, I can save $900 a month from that. I can save
minimum.
That's the minimum. That's the minimum I'm going to save in any given month, barring any unforeseen major expenses, which isn't bad. The last job I had in Phnom Penh, I think I was saving something like $300 or $400 a month. It's good. It's good for the money grab. I guess I don't do much. I work. I got a PlayStation for $140. I play PlayStation. It's not my favorite thing to do, but it's good to pass the time. And it works for now. So yeah, $900. So anything I get beyond that is more of a savings. I had one paycheck that was over by a couple $100. So I saved like $1,100 that month, you know.
That's really good. So do they have enough traffic in order to get you extra hours if you want them, or are you pretty much at the mercy of whatever's available?
That's a good question. You know, I really tried. And then what I mean by that is, like when I first got there, I was happy to be doing the minimum because I was kind of getting used to the school still. And then just as I got used to it and I was thinking about starting to do it, two of our teachers left and they just started shoveling hours on us anyway. And we're still shorthanded. So it just kind of happened. I've never really tried. I think I probably could. I mean, if you're doing a good job and they like how you're doing your things, they'll pretty much try to give you what you want. I just talked to my boss recently, you know, and I said, look, I'd like to have more of a fixed schedule. I like the schedule I have now. I'd like to have more older teens and adults. Can we do this? And she's like, yeah, you know, if you do a good job, they'll try to give what you want. They're not going to give you everything you want, but they're pretty accommodating in that way.
This video is sponsored by Safetywing. I want to remind you guys to check out the link in our description below. If you're thinking about coming overseas and living as an expat, health insurance is something that can save you a lot of time, money, and stress. And we partner with Safetywing because we don't want to see anybody have their dreams shattered by getting sick in a developing country. Parashio. Okay, so what do you think as far as your overall opinion, your overall experience working and living in a small province in Vietnam? Now, granted, you are in a pretty nice province, but what's it? Just summarize for us what it's been like for you. Is this something you would do again? Do you see yourself living in a place this size in the future? What about it did you like? What about it didn't you like, etc.?
I like the clean air. I like the clean water. I like the low population density. I like the good weather. I like the coffee. Coffee's great. You know, the food is okay. You know, there's a decent selection of Western food here, good local food. It has all those things that I didn't want in Saigon. I mean, if you flip that around, that's like Saigon. It's like the water pollution, the air pollution, the traffic, the heat, the flooding. That stuff doesn't exist here. So like, you know, if you like to party, this isn't the place for you, right? Although I'm only an overnight bus away from Ho Chi Minh. So if you wanted to just take a little 2-3 day holiday and, you know, go to Bui Bien or something, you could do that. But it's quiet. It's good. If you want to save some money and just kind of, you know, lead a chill life, this particular province, this provincial city, Bun Ma Thuot, is not bad at all. But I would, if you're thinking about living in some other province, I would talk to Jay first because they can be bad. I understand.
All right, guys. Well, this was what's it like to live in a small province in Vietnam. I hope gave you some insight to what it would be like to live in a small province in Vietnam. And like I said throughout the video, it's not necessarily reflective of what it's like to live in every small province in Vietnam. The homie's a real teacher. He's got a degree in education. He's got a master's degree. You know, he fucking taught in the United States. So for him, there's a lot more security and options available to him, right? So everybody comes in different situations. What I would say is that if you're very desperate, I would really, like, if you're from like a developing country, it's not considered native speaker. I don't care if it sounds like it's better and you really want to go. I would not go to a province in Vietnam. You know, you just don't know what could happen. They don't take your nationality seriously or respect it. Like, things could get kind of crazy. Whereas, you know, if you're like a US citizen, you have a degree in education or even a degree in anything really, there is a lot of different options available to you, or like a British citizen or Australian. And, you know, we can discuss the provinces and we can also discuss the major cities if you work with us. So if you're thinking about coming to Southeast Asia, hit us up. We have a consulting service. We do hourly. We also introduced a new program where we'll create voicemails with you for up to 7 days to answer questions. So we have a week-long service. And we also have packages for our contacts for employment to set you up with HR people, visa people, fixers. Has working with us been helpful getting you set up in Vietnam?
Yeah. Yeah, man, you're my man. You're my man for a reason. We've been working together for a couple of years. You're my go-to guy for sure. I mean, yeah, you know, the money I paid for your service is money well spent for sure. The gift that keeps on giving. I'd recommend your service to anybody.
Well, I appreciate that. And guys, if you enjoyed the content, smash the like button. A large percentage of you guys are watching the videos and you're not clicking subscribe. So subscribe and make me happy, because I will be happy and have inner peace and be closer to enlightenment if you subscribe. There's a lot coming up in the future. I'm going to be in Bangkok at the end of the month, so we'll be running around Thailand for a bit, kind of seeing what's going on over there at the moment. Guys, again, check out all our content. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. We're setting up the locals. We're going to have some of the uncensored content is going to be available on locals. There's certain things that I like to talk about on here, but I can't talk about. Or when I interview people and I get certain stories for them and they say certain aspects of our history that we're not allowed to talk about, apparently, I could have my channel affected. So we're moving that type of content to Rumble and locals. So if you guys want to see stuff that's not going to be censored or me cowering in the corner that they're going to take down my small business's YouTube channel, you can check it out on locals, check it out on Rumble, Reborn Abroad. If you're thinking about moving overseas, get at us. And, listen, guys, you could do far worse than coming out here and teaching for a few years. If you need to figure something out in your life, it's not the worst thing. It was a positive thing in my life, and I would absolutely do it again if I was in a pinch and I needed to. Teaching is it's not necessarily rocket science, but if you're flexible and you have an open mind, you don't get too stressed out too easily. You really can kind of like step up your quality of life compared to what you might be doing in a Western country, working twice as much. So there is really a lot of advantages, and I just try to be frank about some of the disadvantages, like the pollution, the traffic. But I also want to stress that there are a lot of positives also, guys. Like, just because you're in a developing countries and there's challenges, there's a reason why I've stayed out here for so long, because it's fun and there are a lot of really good things about living in Southeast Asia. It just takes a little bit of grit and a little bit of like open-mindedness. Anyway, guys, if you're thinking about doing something different with your life, we also do hourly consulting. So I'll even help you figure out what you want to do with your life. Get at me. We can chat about anything. Stay in school, brush your teeth, and remember, pull your socks up.
Brush your face and wash your teeth, son.
Hey, what's up? I'm D from Canada. Hook up with the New York Nomad if you want a smooth ride into Vietnam or any Southeast Asian countries.
Hey, my name is Aaron. Get in contact with the New York Nomads. If you want to get into Vietnam, hit them up. They'll get you in securely and professionally.
Yo, this is Uncle Hollywood. I'm telling you right now, the New York Nomad got me a job. He's legit. Hit him up. Check him out.
New York Nomad set me up in Vietnam.
Yo, my man got me a job. Come to Vietnam.
Hey, what's up, guys? You thinking about coming to Vietnam? You're not sure where to start. You've heard a lot of things online. You don't know what's true. You don't know what's not. We offer a consulting service where we help you get on your feet in Vietnam. We give you advice on negotiating contracts with employers. We help you with real estate agents, visa agents that are reliable and that you can trust. And we help you get started in this amazing country and get on your feet. We help you get into different opportunities that might be more difficult for you if you were just landing in the country on your own. And we help you avoid a lot of the pitfalls and problems that you could have as a newcomer here. We provide you with reliable job recruiters, visa agents, real estate agents, and advice. If you guys are thinking about coming to Vietnam, hit us up for a consultation. We'll help you get started, help you get on your feet, and hopefully you'll love Vietnam as much as we do.